Hello and welcome to another episode of Winners Only Club podcast in the Hamptons. Today we welcome Dan Gasby. Dan Gasby was the guy who sold TV shows like Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, The Oprah Winfrey Show, arguably three of the most successful shows in television syndication history. Yet he's probably best known for building the B. Smith Enterprise with partner and late wife B. Smith. Today we welcome Dan Gasby.
Hello. Hey,
Hello.
Lulu. Good
Hi.
to be here with you.
Yay. So today we are in East Hampton at Dan's home. Tell us a little bit about your work with all these shows.
I started out in television in Memphis, Tennessee, a boy from Brooklyn, and so TV advertising in Mississippi, Arkansas, the Boot Heel of Missouri, and Memphis itself. And I come to realize that it's a different world, and I had to go into some backwoods places and sell advertising at $20 a pop for commercials. I learned how to write commercials. I learned how to produce commercials, and I also learned how to sell advertising time. And to make a long story short, when I left there, I went on to work for a little company back in the 80s called Turner Broadcasting. And when Ted Turner was trying to get a little station called WTBS that is now Behemoth, the superstation, and built from there all of the TV and media conglomerate that became part of Time Warner's Colossus. So I learned from the ground up how to sell and how to create ideas. And I also had a TV show myself with my late wife that actually launched the career of Art Kelly and Eric Benet. And so I learned how to take something that was a seed of an idea and grow it into a real oak tree. And I did that, and we had the late and lovely good friend Natalie Cole, who was the host of the show. It was an amazing show. It was the competition to Star Search, but it was the forerunner to a little show called American Idol. A lot of the people who started on my show ultimately went on to become producers and directors of American Idol.
Dan, that was so good. And I have such a good follow-up question. One second, please. I just want to make sure that this camera is really on you. Is that, just move a little tiny bit. Okay, that's much better. Sorry.
All right.
I'm just learning to be the best I can.
Are we going to pick it up from there?
Yeah. Sorry about that. So I don't know if we say that again or just the last part again.
My career started in 1978 in Memphis, Tennessee, where I sold local television for then fledgling startup TV station WPTY, and I sold in Mississippi, Arkansas. I sold in the Boot Heel of Missouri. I sold throughout Tennessee, and I learned on the ground how to walk in, talk to an advertiser, understand their needs, then come up with a concept. And I was selling what we used to call it $5 a holler television advertising, where you go in, talk to them about how television is powerful, how it could, it was the sum of all media, sight, sound, motion, and emotion. And then I would tell them that I can make your cash register sing by using advertising. And so I wrote the commercial, I directed the commercial, I would write the script, I would sit in the editing room and cut it, and watch the cash register ring and come back for the second order, because it's not getting the first order that counts. You want to be able to get reorders. Anybody can sell somebody something once. The question is, do you build a relationship? Do you build a community? Do you build trust?
And that's how you get a reorder.
That's how you build a business, and that's how you become a good salesperson. It's the ability for someone to be able to close their eyes and know that you can guide them through whatever maze or obstacle there is.
Actually, I want to share with everyone that Dan really is a good not only a good salesperson. I think when you go from doing whatever you do to a teacher at whatever you do, that's when you know you're really good. And if you don't mind, I'm gonna get my notebook because it's over there.
Yeah, go ahead.
The first time we ever met. Okay, so Dan G's Buy Your Value / join. Dan G said, number one, present your idea. He says to make sure it's inviting and enticing. Yeah, let me tell you about my idea. Number two, ask, what do you think? And then you wait and listen to the client and talk. And then number three, restate what you stated. This time, including their objections, if any, or feelings or thoughts. So for instance, so you mentioned this, and then you restate what you said. And then number four, ask, how would you feel? How would you feel good about feeling? Because when it comes to sales, it's not just logic. Emotion plays a huge role to it. Because it's like love. It doesn't have to make sense. People just do what they feel is right, essentially. And then number five, order. Now that's the part where I had the hardest part in because I think I was relatively good like marketing and being like putting on the show. But the last part was kind of very scary to say, hey, let's do this. So I told myself to pretend I'm on camera because on camera I'm like, hey, but in person I freeze. So I just pretend like I'm on camera and say, hey, let's do this. Why don't we just make a commitment of 3 months? And then a quote to go by that is from B. Smith is, I stand on a mountain of no's for one yes. Dan Gasby, the man himself, what do you have to say or add to?
Well, I'm particularly proud of you. And when I met you or talking to another friend and you were so enthusiastic and so focused, you know, at this stage in my life, I want to be known for one thing. If I see someone deserving of help and I can help them, then I'm going to do it. And I saw you have all the skills, you have all the drive. Sometimes you just need to hear someone else tell you what you can do and what you can achieve. Because a lot of things, like pennies in a washing machine, can rattle around in your head. But the question is, can you get them out, or can you listen to them objectively and see what they mean to you, what you hear someone else saying? I see you, I know where you're going. Hey, have you thought about this? Is it time to think about this, and this, or something else? And to let that percolate, let that sort of just happen inside yourself, and then you go and do it.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Would you call yourself a businessman or producer first?
I call myself a person that likes to tie knots. I like bringing things together, bringing people together, bringing ideas together, taking disparate things and building something that can be greater than the parts itself.
The name of this podcast is called Winners Only Club. What's your definition of a winner and what's your definition of a loser?
Well, first of all, let me put it to you this way. Everyone loses. And my wife had a quote that has become synonymous with her. I've stood on a mountain of no's, so one yes. And if you really think about it, in a sports vernacular, if you get one hit every 3 times you're up, that means you failed to get a hit 2 out of 3. So you failed 66.7 times, but 333 will take you to the Hall of Fame. The question is not just winning, it's what you learn from losing. And I've always believed one thing. People who started out on third base and think that they hit a home run don't know what it takes to get into the batter's box when the pitcher has a different type of ball he's throwing, or he's throwing harder. So losers is an attitude. Winning is a habit. And I don't like to get, my wife and I used to say every year we try to fail more because we try to do more different things. So what I call a loser is not someone who doesn't get the order necessary or who may not have the right ingredients to get the recipe or the dish cooked. I call a person of low moral qualities a loser. But everyone makes a mistake. Everyone doesn't get an order. Sometimes they deserve, or sometimes they don't get it. They do get an order, and they don't deserve it. So that winner and loser is a flexible thing. But for me, winning always feels good when you know you did the right thing, and you can at least say, I made something happen that no one thought could, or I made the customer, more importantly, feel that they're joining a team. People join you, they don't buy you.
Who's the biggest winner in your life?
Oh, my wife certainly is. Barbara Smith, B. Smith was the biggest winner because she had to overcome a lot of things. She was a woman, and women have disadvantages to men by virtue of size, strength, ego, the need to control. She was a black woman, and that has its own dynamic. And she was a dark-skinned black woman, which means in the general population, light and bright and damn near white in the black culture tends to have an easier time getting there, easier time getting opportunities to be successful. Still exists today. And so she overcame all of those things. She didn't have long blonde hair. She didn't have blue eyes. She wasn't what was considered classic looking in the American quote unquote sense. So she is to me, one of the biggest winners. The other was my father because he overcame a lot of obstacles. He had polio, and he knew that he worked out as much as he could and was strong and was a handsome man who was elegant. And then my all-time hero, the guy that I revere is Jackie Robinson, because to be the first in something where people didn't want to see you succeed was unbelievable. I mean, that man went through hell, and he suffered from it. He had diabetes. He aged prematurely because of the weight of systemic racism. That's why I'm so forceful about caring about doing the right thing and seeing people of all different perspectives, races, genders, sexuality, get their fair share.
B. Smith, we all want to know, how did you land such a dime?
I walked into a restaurant, asked her out. She got hugged by someone as I was waiting. To make a beautiful story short, but sweet. I didn't think she would date me. I went to a bar restaurant, and at brunch time, she jumped out of a car with another beautiful woman. I asked her for a hug. She gave me a hug, and then she pushed me back and said, "Your life might take a turn for the better if you make a phone call," because you don't ask for the order. I didn't. I thought I couldn't be with someone like her. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, we went on lunch date, and it was like hand in glove. It was like two palms coming together. And I took her to my favorite restaurant. She walked around the streets of New York City, and I kissed her on the cheek. Walked about 5 steps away, 10 steps away, turned around, and she was still staring at me. And we were together ever since. And it's a long, more beautiful, honestly, when I look back at it, hindsight story, but that's how it was. I asked for the order. I asked that I wanted to be with her.
Navigating as both partners in love and business, what was the relationship dynamic like for each? How were you able to maneuver both at the same time?
Well, what I haven't found in anyone that I've since then is that we didn't compete with each other, we completed each other. And I liked her as much as I loved her. And she knew how to take control when she needed to, and she knew how to release control. We had what we called a 40-40 relationship. She had 40%, I had 40%. The other 20 swings. So most relationships, people try to talk about 50-50. It's not realistic. It's a tit for tat. No, in any situation, if you own in business, if you own 40% of something, you got a major stake, but you don't control. So if we were in a relationship, whatever it was, but particularly for what worked for me with my wife, she had 40, I had 40, and then we took that other 20. This is her time, or this was my time. And then we moved with 100% certainty together.
What role did you play as the CEO of B. Smith Enterprise? Because even though she was the face of the show, but a show has many acts.
Yeah. She was the quarterback. She was the star, and I was the support. You know, a lot of men can't handle that. A lot of men, and I can say this very honestly, I call it SDS. It's called short dick syndrome. And what they have to be in control. And I didn't have to be in control. And you have to like who you love, not love what you like. And you run into what kills a lot of relationships with a powerful woman is that people are cruel and people are envious, you know, and people would say dumb stuff to me like, "What's it like being Mr. Smith?" I'd go, "Pretty damn good. I wake up with a beautiful woman every morning. She smiles at me. We do things together. I can't wait I hate to leave her. I can't wait to see her when I have to go somewhere." You know, so what you have to do is you have to put them on their heels because envy is the thing that kills more relationships, or the toxicity of people being envious. We never hung out with a lot of couples because a lot of couples, and in front they look lovey-dovey, but in the back there was always this stress, this tension. We didn't have that, you know. And then we were in the restaurant business, and you know, I knew my place. I knew that she was the star. I never tried to usurp that position. I never felt inferior because of that. And she understood. And if she says, "Honey, I need you to do this," yeah, okay, baby.
I've heard that women who are more dominant socially are more submissive romantically. Is there some truth to that?
I guess in any situation it could be. We had a torrid love affair. I mean, we were married 28 years. She was beautiful in every possible way. She was loving. She was a tigress, and she was a kitten. She was controlling, and she liked to be controlled. And what I'm saying by that is we shared intimacies. There wasn't no, me, Tarzan, you, Jane. It was, we loved each other.
I was doing my research, and it seems like everyone knows B. Smith as the face of the empire, but we know that it takes a team to build an empire. Can you kind of shine or shed some light to what did you do behind the scenes for her business?
She was a creative force. I handled the day-to-day nuts and bolts. The biggest thing that women have, that's the problem when they become successful, is the guy can be jealous or insecure, or they allow what I call time ticks. You know what a tick is? A tick that gets on your skin? Well, time ticks suck the blood or suck your time away. And there's always somebody trying to, even incidentally or unintentionally, but most of the times it's intentionally because of envy, they're trying to separate. If a situation goes wrong, well, I told you he was no good, or you shouldn't, they want to jump on board because what they want to do is separate these two people because usually they don't have it. Usually they don't have that relationship, and your relationship, when it's great, reminds them of what they don't have. So I kept the tough stuff away from her so that she could be creative and so she was at 30,000 feet and I was on the ground just keeping the enemies of time and jealousy and needs at bay.
Can you walk through how a contract would be made from beginning to end?
Well, usually what happens is, what was so amazing is that we'd see something, like we wanted to do a TV show, and B had an idea we should do it at a house. So we bought a house and at the beach in Sag Harbor. People laughed at us. We cut the roof. We put skylights over the stove, the ovens, and the cooktops. And we told people we want to shoot a TV show there, and they laughed. And then when we had people like Henry Winkler or Danny Glover, or Little Richard, I mean, they couldn't believe that we did it. because we could look at something and make it happen. Probably the biggest thing I miss is that I'll never have someone that we could look at something and say we're going to do it, and when most people just dream, we did it.
One of my definitions of a winner is someone who doesn't just sit on their ideas, someone who takes action.
Yeah, well, you can shoulda all over yourself. I should have done this, I should have done that. We never shoulda all over ourselves. We did it.
Did you call her B or Barbara?
I call her Sweetie. It was either Sweetie or Sweetie Pie, and then, or Barb. My daughter called her Military Barb because she was very focused. Very rarely can you find someone that can do it all. She could cook. She knew how to clean. I mean, really knew how to clean. She could make a bed like what she was taught by her father from a military standpoint. She could wear cut up jeans, or she could take a sweater and turn it around backwards and make it look like a totally different outfit. She was always kind. She was a true diva. There was no attitude. She didn't use those colloquialisms. She was classy.
Classy.
And it was one of the problems she had, and that's part of the problem about being black in America. Her voice and her diction and her English was so precise that some black people said she talked white, and some white people didn't like her because they wanted her to be more black. And so she was always in this, but she knew how. She was like the eye of a tornado. Stuff could swirl around her, but inside she was calm, and she understood. I mean, we would laugh. We would see people who would come into the restaurant only when we were there so they could get something free. And we knew what the prices for the stuff was. And we would just give it to them, see how much they would eat or drink for free, and then they'd tell us how wonderful we were. We knew they were ticks.
Yeah.
We used to call people who were out for themselves ticks. We had time ticks, we had food ticks, we had drink ticks. We had a lot of, a tick is an animal that lives on a host.
Yeah.
And it sucks it dry. And sometimes, we let them drink because we knew what they were drinking.
Yeah.
Or we shortened the drink because they weren't paying for it anyway. And then you always found out who they were when you said, "Well, I'm going back to, and I know you're getting ready to run. Leave a tip for the bartender." And some of them did, and some of them didn't.
Wow.
Because people, because they're cheap. And that's what you learn in business, is that people always eventually show who they are. They can't get away from it because they get comfortable, and then their personalities are revealed.
Do you think it's possible for people to change and evolve over time, or whatever they are?
Many
They just
don't.
stay? Okay.
Some do. By and large, no. But there are those rare exceptions.
What was like a favorite dish that B would cook?
Well, B could cook anything.
Really?
Yeah, she lived in Paris, she lived in Milan. She was making sushi in the 80s when people didn't even know what sushi was. All of our great chefs, especially in the New York restaurant, were Malay, were Chinese or Malaysian, and she taught them how to cook soul food. But she was not a chef, and she was not culinary trained. But she, like her mother and her grandmother, like my mother, my great aunt, my grandmother, come from, these women could cook.
Oh.
They're not there now. They were edged out or pushed out. My mother, her grandmother, she sat at their knee and learned.
I saw a funny TikTok video the other day, and they were like, "Meghan Markle, you claim to be half black. Come over and make me some fried chicken, and I'll judge how black you are."
Yeah, well, that's,
What do you think about that?
well, yeah, that's, that was one of the biggest problems we had with our restaurant. We had a restaurant 19 years, was now called Bill Bouquet. And people would come there and go, "Oh, well, there's no soul food." And I would say, "What do you see out there?" I go, "What do you mean?" "What do you see?" "Well, you see boats and water." "Well, what kind of water is that?" "Well, it's salt water." "That's seawater, right?" What's in seawater?" "Fish." "It's a seafood restaurant." Racism is so pernicious that you could be any other ethnicity and you could open any restaurant you want. You could be white and open up a Chinese restaurant. You could be this or that and open up a Greek restaurant. Not even be Greek, but probably what you'd have to be. But when black people try to do it, it's like you only can cook soul food. None of her books were soul food books. She would take soul food, or quote unquote black food, quote unquote, was American fare that came from the Africans, the American Indians, and Europe, a collage of different people and ethnicities, and she would transform it, or it was transformed. But we didn't do soul food.
It seems like she grabbed stereotypes, generalizations by the neck and just said goodbye.
She broke them down, she dissolved them, she always had to overcome that. You know, quite honestly, she could do what any of the great ones could do. You know, one of the nicest things that I remember is when she met Julia Childs. And Julia loved her and told her that, you know, of the people on television, well, you know, some of the people I'm talking about, she was so much better and could cook so much better and was so much more gracious and so much more inviting. That was from Julia Childs, rest her soul. She loved me, loved her.
I think we're in sync now, Dan, because that was my next question. I was going to mention Julia Child and if you guys liked her.
Loved her.
Amazing.
Loved her. She had a worldview. She was, and she could make fun of herself.
Yeah.
And you could tell that she wasn't, as I like to say, most people you find at some point, if they're not real, they're constipated. They're stuck up. You know, I mean, constipation is not only a bowel movement or lack thereof, it's an attitude, you know. So you see a lot of people who are uncomfortable in their skin, or they could project to the camera and say, I love you, I'm this, and then when they get off, you see it go right back to who they really are. That's why I always say, I watch what people watch and listen to what people listen to and see their emotions, see their reactions, and they always never fool me. Eventually you find them, find out who they are. You find the real person.
You're very observant.
I am.
Like a true Pisces.
I am, and I'm a Pisces with everything in Pisces. So my highs are highs and my lows are lows.
Yeah.
But I learn how to come back. And I know when I go into a low period, I know it's time to bounce back. I'll tell you a little secret.
Please.
When things are not going well, I put a timer on and I close my eyes and I try to walk around for 5 minutes blind. And I bump into stuff, or I don't want to move, or I try to pick something up, or I take a pen and I'm right-handed. I try to do stuff with only my left hand. And what it reminds me of is that no matter what you think you're dealing with, it's really, your health is everything. Having 2 hands, having 2 legs, being able to see. And it usually bounces me back almost instantaneously. Because I can get up and walk out, I can pick and grab, I can do this. And that's one of my secrets to staying positive.
To close your eyes and walk for 5 minutes.
Try, yeah. And then you realize everything else is a whole lot of bullshit.
I heard in another podcast, because I was doing some field research, that an entrepreneur really becomes an entrepreneur during the difficult times.
No, you don't learn anything from success. You only learn strength, resiliency, the ability to come back when you have failure. Failure teaches. Success creates hubris.
What's the one?
Hubris, arrogance.
Hubris.
H-U-B-R-I-S, hubris.
Hubris. I like that. I'm like a sucker for words and phrases. I love
words.
Hubris.
Words are beautiful. Words.
Sure.
Nothing better than being able to paint a picture that someone can see in the back of their head.
Yeah.
with words. That's why I love the word constipated, because most of people think of that and you got to take Metamucil or X-Lax.
Yeah.
But the mind can be constipated too. Body can be constipated. The mind can, the attitude can be constipated.
Yeah. I recently think that coconut water, I don't know if anyone watching or listening can agree, is a laxative.
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm not the only one, thank God.
No, it's a laxative, but I mean, people indigenous to the areas with coconuts knew that you got more electrolytes from
Yeah.
coconuts. That it's a healthy water.
Yeah.
It's chock full of vitamins and electrolytes. I mean, you're sitting there in 90-degree weather, you crack that nut, but what do you got to do? You got to work to get to that nut, to get to that pulp, to get to that juice.
Circling back to what you mentioned earlier, business strategies. What were some business strategies you used during the sales of television?
Well, the first thing I learned was to always be able to. There's an old saying: sell the sizzle and not the steak. Sell the candy on top and not the cake. Sell the sizzle, don't sell the steak. Sell the candy and not the cake.
I'm kind of digesting it right now.
Excitement, energy, enthusiasm, passion, all of those things when you present something, how you present it, your body language, your eyes, your movements, what you feel inside that comes through in a non-verbal but physical way about it, the confidence. And there can be a thin line between confidence and arrogance or hubris, as I said. But when you're in the moment, you're at one with what you're doing, and it comes across to the person that's observing you, because they're taking all that data in and then making a judgment about you.
So the key is to sell with enthusiasm.
To sell with enthusiasm, commitment, obviously you need to know your product, and you need to be able to listen, because they will tell you. There's a saying I used to say when I used to talk to sales staff or people, when someone's saying, yes, I will, yes, I will, yes, I will, their words are, I believe in it, I believe in it. I'm saying something, but my body and everything else is saying, I don't believe in it, or I don't care, or I'm not listening to you. I walked into rooms where, man, I could tell you stories. I was in Mississippi, and I was selling a guy television advertising. And he said to me, you're the smartest nigger I've ever met. And I said, well, if I was a Martian and I could make you money, you should use me. You might even want to go to Mars. Maybe you could sell there. So I knew how to deflect things and never let the first shot knock me out. I may get stunned, but I back up, see where I am, see who I'm dealing with. Do they have any more coming? Now I'm prepared. Anything could happen. And then weather the storm, and then when I get a chance, take them out.
Where did this resilience come from?
It was me. And watching my father, watching my mother, watching what they had to do and how they had to, and listening to my dad.
What was your parents' relationship like?
Oh, till the end. Till the end. My mother and father loved each other. And my father taught me how to be affectionate. He would kiss me.
On the lips?
Oh, no. No. Well, kiss me.
Okay.
I've seen so many guys who, be a man.
Yeah.
Punch him in the, that don't make you a man, it makes you an animal.
Yeah.
Be strong. Well, you can be strong, but you also got to know this. You got to be strong enough to be weak.
Yeah.
It's sad and how some people want to pass on their script. My mother and father told me, don't be a clown. Mm-hmm. And if you can figure out how to take care of yourself, we've done our job. Mm-hmm. You didn't have to be a doctor, or you didn't have to be a lawyer. But don't have to look over your shoulder. Don't be a thief. Nothing worse than a thief. Nothing worse than somebody that has to take something. My father used to say, if you can't feel their pain, don't worry about their gain. And in this society where people kill themselves because they can't live up to what other people think they should be, I might kill somebody, but I ain't killing myself. And I say that in jest, but I'm not going to allow someone to get into rent space in my head and make me feel I'm around people who have 100 times more than me. But you know what they can't be?
You.
That's true. But they can't be happier than I am. Happiness is you can't be more happy or less. I'm sort of happy. But you can't be sort of pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. So I've learned that over time. And the other thing is trust. I know many things about many people that I would never share. I will go to my grave not talking about. People who are very wealthy have told me in the height of emotions things they felt about whoever. And I would never betray that trust.
What makes someone trust you?
Oh, it's simple. I stand for something. Just like I stand for, my political beliefs. I'm a liberal. I believe that women should be equal pay for equal work. That a woman should be able to control her body. I don't care what religion you are if you don't have a religion. I question religion every day. I'm not religious, but I was baptized and I almost got into, or would have got accepted into a divinity school because I was interested along with a law school. But I don't care if you don't believe in God. I don't care. I don't believe women should have to wear burqas, or I don't believe people should make love through a hole in a sheet or a whole host. It's crazy.
I never even heard of that.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. That's religion. I don't believe men and women should be separated. I don't believe that. That's nonsense to me.
Yeah. I feel like, I don't know, when it comes to everything, do you have the merit? Whoever has the most merit.
Well, it should be, but I'm not pro-life. I'm pro-choice, and I'm not afraid to say that. I want you or you collectively as women to have the same rights that I have. Sperm is cheap and eggs are expensive.
Really?
Yeah, well, not, you get
Oh, yeah,
pregnant.
that makes sense.
9 months.
Yeah.
You should have the same right as a man. Your body doesn't belong to anybody but you. I am a unabashed liberal. That fiscally conservative and socially liberal. Yeah, okay. I'm not even that. I've seen waste. I know what waste is. I know how it works.
Circling back to the present, living in the Hamptons, what are the worst and best aspects of living here?
It's monopoly money out here. People who don't deserve to get paid for what they do get paid too much, and they do a lousy job. You don't have real competition. That's the thing that I see. There's an arrogance. There's an envy because people have so much, and then the people who have to do work for them resent them. I'm always amazed when people say, I'm glad that the weekenders are gone. What, are you kidding me? This place would be a duck and a potato if they didn't have people coming out here spending money, or they're anti this or anti that. Wait a minute. The reason that we have so much out here is because so many people come out here and spend their money. Yeah, it's crowded. Yeah, they're honking their horns. Well, you don't get something like what they spend out here for nothing. Comes with the territory. It's better than seeing tumbleweed going down Main Street or down 27 or down County Road 39.
So before I asked, what's the worst aspect of living in the Hamptons? Now I ask, what's the best aspect?
I'll tell you one other aspect.
Oh, go ahead.
The kids that live out here are a lot of them they have no social skills. They're like, it's like they were raised by werewolves or vampires, and their attitudes and how they act in restaurants or on the street or entitlement. That's one of the big things. You see that most of them are, they couldn't take a punch or work hard. If they weren't in the Lucky Sperm Club, they wouldn't, they're weak. They're weak. They never had the hustle. They don't know how to say hello or to look you in the eye. You know, and they'll fail upward because mommy and daddy will provide them with the tether, you know, the umbilical cord of success and money that they have, but you know, they've never been punched in the face, so they don't understand what a fight is really like, but they can get uppity and angry and arrogant. That's one of the worst things that I've seen out here. Okay.
Not all of us.
No, but a good deal.
What's the best part about living in the Hamptons?
The light, the weather, the sun, the combination of you can be in the middle of a field watching vegetables grow, or you can be on the water looking out into the Great Peconic Bay or into the ocean. There are beautiful people out here for whatever reason who've come here or settle. There's an intelligence and intellect that's out here that only captured in a few places where you can have all of that. The proximity to New York City, where you can get your fill of New York or get your fix of New York and get out. No, I love the Hamptons. I love everything east of the Shinnecock. I love it. That's beautiful. I mean, I live here. I've lived in Manhattan all my life, in Brooklyn, and traveled around the world, and lived in the West Coast, East Coast, you know, Chicago, Florida. But this is the best place.
What are you doing now?
Right now, I'm working on a movie, trying to put together a deal for a movie about my wife, about our life, and I've gotten some very good indications that we're moving forward.
Like what?
Like people are interested in doing it, but you know, I was telling someone as recently as a day ago, you know, we're doing very well coming with our licensing business, Decent Products, that for 20 years run Bed Bath and Beyond, and now moving into different stores because Bed Bath and Beyond is going in a totally downhill direction, and we've got to make adjustments. So we're working on the licensing business. I'm happy to see things and be able to have access to hopefully do them. That's, you know, someone asked me, how do you want to be remembered?
It's a good one.
And I say with plans. I'm always planning something. You know, I sit here in a nice house. I'm not in one room. When I get, you know, when my dogs go, I'll probably move to something smaller. I'll be older. I won't need this much, you know. But I've lived a great life. And it wasn't easy. It hasn't been easy. But I've done it, as my wife would say, with style. You know, from coming up in a very poor, lower middle class, poor area, dealing with roaches and mice, things of that sort. I remember sitting on a toilet once and I'm looking down and a mouse was looking up at me. And I remember poking the ceiling, and it was the funniest thing because we could hear them up there. We used to call the rodents wall dogs. I mean, you know, and I knew they had built a nest up there, but what was so funny was I thought I was going to build it, break it, and it comes down, and I had a long mop handle, mop pole, and what I was poking didn't come down. What came down was right on top of my head, and I fell down and went over a sofa and stood straight up.
Wow.
You know, it was like one of those things right out of like a Three Stooges movie or something like that.
Literally.
It went boom, and it would go boom, and I stood up, and I saw that nest, and it had pennies and marbles and bazooka gum sticker wrappers, and twists from the bread. They had built this, and it was almost artistically beautiful. Now, if I had known what I know now, I would have taken a picture of that mouse nest because it was so crazy quilted, beautiful in its own destructive. I mean,
Yeah.
yes. But and I remember you took one bath a week, and you had to light the stove with put all 4 pots on the stove.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And you turn the hot water on in the tub, and you use up all of it that you possibly could. Then it would go cold, and then as soon as it stopped, you would take all of the hot water from the 4 pots that you put and put it in the tub, and then you would begin. You put your foot. Oh! You put your
Yeah.
foot in, and then you turn on the cold water to get it as good, as temperate as you possibly could, but warm enough so that it wouldn't get cold. And then you'd wash, and you'd get the hell out because now you're sitting in dirty water. I remember those days as a kid. And then my parents did a little better and a little better, and then when I first bought my first brownstone. So I came up in a tough era, and I had to fight for everything. So when I see people who are arrogant
Yeah.
and never had to fight for anything, I just look at them like,
Despicable.
well, I feel sad, but what I don't let them do is make me think that I'm not worth something. It's a strange thing. It's like arrogance. It's like I had recently a lady. I'm talking to a person at the counter, and the person comes right up and starts talking to the person like I wasn't there. And I said, "Excuse me, can I ask you a question?" And she's like almost not wanting to talk because she's talking. I said, "Do I look like I'm invisible? You wait your turn." And you have to do that to a lot of people out here because they are so arrogant, so dismissive. It's like the kid who's a bully
Yeah.
because he can bully smaller kids. When he gets in a room with kids the same size, they beat the crap out of him because he doesn't
Yeah.
know how to fight. He doesn't have any tools. He
What-
just has bullying.
Which side of the bullying were you in high school?
Oh,
Bullied or bullied?
No, I was never bullied in high school, but I was bullied on the street by older kids. Yeah, I got beat up.
Yeah.
They were much older than me. And one kid did that to me. He beat me so bad. It took me 4 years because I was short and then I grew. I grew like 4 inches in 1 year between like the 2 years, between 12 and 14. And when I got to be 16, 17, I caught that guy by myself. I beat the crap out of him. 'Cause I don't forget. I will remember. I was raised in I used to have to, I would like to read. And I was called Clarence the Cross-Eyed Lion because they had a show called Natario on. And the lion in this African setting, this place where they kept animals who couldn't hunt. He couldn't hunt because when he looked for gazelles, he'd see 4 of them. He wouldn't know which way to run to catch them. So, I got teased. But I always remember every dog has his day. Every dog has his day.
Who says that?
I don't know. It's just colloquialism that I remember.
Yeah.
I don't know. I couldn't quote. It's just something that's a vernacular that's out here in the universe, and you pick up on it.
Now that we're on the topic of you being in school, I am now imagining like a young Dan Gasby. And what did you listen to when you were a kid?
Like when you say listen to, like you mean people or
Like music, yeah.
Oh, God. I was a Temptations guy. I was a Motown guy. I loved, and I still do, I love Elton John. I love Rod Stewart. I love country. Well, back then I didn't know country music until I went and lived in the South. I lived in Tennessee and started listening to, Tom Petty and Mo Bandy and Willie Nelson and I like Jerry Lee Lewis, you know, Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys. But I pick up music. I listen to everything. I like opera. I love Asian music. I mean, I've listened to it's the beat or it's the words. There's nothing better than country and western songs about she got the gold mine, I got the shaft. It's
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I love
Yeah, it's funny and it's also relatable.
oh, it's part of the ethos of our society.
I want to know when it comes to the current artists, who is your favorite?
I like The Weeknd.
Really?
Yeah, I like Adele. Uh, I mean, I just, I love Ed Sheeran. I love his music. But there's so many, you know, great musicians out here. But I tend to stick with some of the classics.
Music is like a universal language.
Music and food.
Yeah, you got me there.
Yeah, music, it crosses all lines because it's visceral, because it goes into, into your spirit. But I'm an R&B guy, but I love all different types of music. I mean, my mind races when I think of, the balance that you try to find in music. I like stories.
Thank you so much for your time. What's in your calendar for you as a person and for you as work in the next in the future?
Hopefully getting this movie to the point where it's totally done in terms of all of the financing and everything. The lifestyle business, moving it to the next level. That's the first and foremost. To continue my wife's legacy through her products. That's the number one thing. Number two thing is a movie. Number three thing is figuring out what I want to do going forward after the next 4 or 5 years. Like I have a couple ideas. Will I move? Will I share? Will I find someone I want to spend more time with? I've learned over the last year how to be alone.
Yeah.
I mean, I was married for 40 years, 28 years with my second wife, which would be in 12 years. So for most of my adult life, I was in a relationship. And I'm going out with people, and in their own unique way, they've either didn't measure up or let me down or didn't see enough in me to believe or whatever. So that goes on.
Guys, you can find more of Dan Smith at...
Oh, wait a minute. It's Dan Gasby.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I literally... Oh my God, I'll cut this out.
No.
No,
Leave
I
it.
was so good
Leave it.
at...
Leave it.
I literally was looking at your cap.
Yeah, no, leave it. That's part of, if that's the worst thing that I'm remembered for being my best friend, having her. I even told her one name. I swear to God, I said to her one day, I said, why don't I just change my name to Smith? And that wasn't as out of frustration, that was out of love for her.